This conference will now be recorded.
But welcome everyone to our last session. Today we're welcoming our speaker, Miss Maxine Chaplin, and just a brief bio about her. Ms. Chaplin has over 25 years of proposal-related experience. She has managed proposals worth more than $500 million at several large publicly traded companies and provided proposal oversight for bids worth more than $800 million. Ms. Chaplin has in-depth knowledge and experience in pre-proposal activities and managing DoD federal, commercial, and nonprofit proposals. Her experience also includes performance-based and earned value management procurements. So feel free to take it away.
Thank you for allowing me to share information with you today about grant and proposal writing. This is going to be an overview, but hopefully it's going to be interactive. So I'd like to actually start off with, before we get started, if folks that are on the phone or in conference, if you guys just share a little bit about what your expectations are for this training session. So, Levon, you're the first one to open up your screen. So share with me what you're looking to do.
Good morning. How are you? I'm LeRon Martin, representing Virtual Village. I have downloaded grants and received, but I've never been through the process of having to write and apply. So I'm just looking to see for just baseline ground knowledge of kind of how to, like what you have on your screen, how to do a request for funding proposal, what I need to do, and what steps I need to take. So I'm really working at zero knowledge base here. So, which reminded me, we really supported. Happy for me today.
Okay, thanks. Brianna?
Hello, good morning. I am interested. I've actually applied for grants before. I'm interested in just learning more about grant proposals and just expanding my knowledge on what I do know, and then tailoring it because I've applied for grants for other entities and other businesses, but I want to get more knowledge into my business.
Okay. Jeff? Jeff, you're on mute.
Yeah. If there's a lag, okay, oh boy. Next, go next.
Okay, good. Tiffany?
Yes, good morning. I do apologize.
Good
I
morning.
I am also the co-founder of Virtual Village, and much like Mr. Martin, I've been on the receiving end of grants, but don't have much knowledge of grant writing. So I definitely would love to learn everything that you're teaching today. Thank you.
Okay. Um, Jeff is having technical problems, so I'm just going to move forward. So let me first let you know that when you deal with grants and proposal writing, whether it's solicited or unsolicited, the world is always changing. The first time I wrote a grant, it was all paper, no, and you just sent it in. So now a lot of stuff is on, is actually on the site of the grantor. So today I'm hoping that the introduction to grants will help you understand what grants are, what an RFP is, and what an unsolicited proposal is. Um, and we can adjust the times, but also we want to go into pre-grant writing, what it really is, solicited proposals and unsolicited proposals. So to introduce you to grants and what it really is, I wanted to distinguish between the three so that you understand from your organization perspective what you need to do. So, of course, grants are online now. There are very few that are paper format. But the first step that you have to do is evaluate your organization eligibility, because you identify a grant does not always mean that you can apply for that grant. Because if you are non-compliant, and you'll hear me say that throughout this training session, then you will not be accepted. So it's little things that you don't think about, and we'll get into that later. A solicited proposal normally comes from a foundation, it's a federal agency or a private entity, and they release a RFP, and normally that statement of work is something that they want you to follow to the T, and you can be non-compliant there too, and we'll talk more about that. It's more for research, development, and training or services. And then you have the unsolicited proposal, which I'm hoping that after this training session, every person on the screen will try to submit an unsolicited proposal, because the important part of that is that it's a part of your business developing marketing process. So we'll talk more about that as we go on. And please don't hesitate to stop me if you have a question. Also, Michelle, if someone's saying something on the chat, you can interrupt me to let me know that too. So there's a strategy behind providing, responding to a grant or a solicitation, or even submitting an unsolicited one. First is about the donor's expectation. A lot of times what we do is we think about what we want. I want apples, I want money, I want products, I want this. And we fail to understand that the gift that the donor gives us is an investment from them into your culture, into your program, into your ability to be able to sustain the program and stuff. So you have to connect to what is meaningful to the donor. The program financially is what is the outcome for them, so that they can actually, as I would say, have bragging rights about what they're doing for you. So let me ask a question and see where you guys are with the donors. Have you guys at first identified any donors? Any companies, any foundations, anything that you think may be a possibility for uh, giving you a gift? Anyone?
Yes, ma'am. We've
Okay.
identified a couple of small businesses in the area. We're trying to do a summer program to do cold recovery. So we have a couple of companies in mind that are looking to sponsor. So not necessarily it's being a grant, but they're going to sponsor a week. It's a 4-week program. Each business will sponsor 1 week for a group of 10 students. Is that kind of what
Okay.
you're asking for?
Yeah, yeah, because that's a part of unsolicited proposals.
Yeah.
You requested something, you went to some BD behind it, which is business development, where you talked about what your marketing need was, what your company's need was, or organization need was, and then you probably followed up with maybe a letter or something, and so that is under, so that you know in the future, unsolicited proposals. So very good. You identified a donor. Anybody else identified a donor, or they identified a RFP or anything that is going to provide you with a product, money, or some type of service time? Okay, so now what I need you to do on your sheet of paper that you have in front of you or your laptop, I need you to now think about a donor, a foundation, or a government agency that you would like to solicit a product, a money, or something from. Jot that down because this is the purpose of this is to get you guys started in the uh, creating business development opportunities and um, actually submitting proposals. You guys jotted down something? Somebody want to share with me other than Levon what they jotted down? I get quiet. Okay, Levon, share with us what you jotted down. It looked like you were writing something down.
Yes, ma'am. So I was looking. There's a grant for I think it's MESAC, Maryland State Arts Council. So it's like a $2,000 just rolling grant that they're giving out for professional development. So I'm gonna get providing what they need for that. So it's in the next 30 days. I want to apply.
Okay. Okay, so that's good. So identify, and then also what I want you to think about now, because we're talking strategy, is think about that as a next year commitment to doing some legwork, some business development, talking to people about the grant. You're going to apply this year, of course, but you want them to know who you are. The first time you apply for a grant, unless it's um, even if it's a federal grant, you want to do some, hey, this is who we are, get to know people, some groundwork. Okay. So any um, donor that you have jotted down on a sheet of paper, I want you to now think about how you can do some upfront work, which we call in the marketing world groundwork for sharing who the organization is, what the purpose of the organization is, and what type of work you want to do within the community, whether it's the business, social, or athletic community. So, okay. So then the next thing you want to think about donor nonprofit relationships. That's what I've been talking about, building relationships, getting your organization's name out there. A lot of things you can do through branding, which is the old school way of doing it, just going up, giving them a leaflet, giving them a slick, giving them something on your organization, a one pager. More today, you can talk about podcasts. You know, you can connect yourself to a podcast that's doing maybe interested in the same types of things. Like we talked about art ventures trying to get pulled into the art world. There are probably podcasts where that they focus on art, community arts, things that are happening in the community, even if you can get your name out there as a part, your organization's name out there as a part of the art community would be good. Um, Social media platforms, uh, start collecting, which is really important, testimonies about what children, what adults have received from your organization, how it's changed their lives, how it's made a difference. That's good because that's the same kind of thing you want to put into a grant in terms of allowing the donor to know what you've done in the community. Now, let me stop for a moment to say, and what I'm saying, does it make sense? Can you relate to it? Donovan, you're shaking your head. Tell me ways that you feel you can relate to it.
You say Dominant?
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry,
Damon, sorry.
Damon. Yeah, and apologies for late. Had a basement leak late last night. Really appreciate you being here and helping us. I mean, and just call it. I do some marketing, and so a lot of things that you're saying, just in terms of pipeline building, a lot of it in the field is like called field building. So just really building kind of the ecosystem and the network that you're going to tap into when you go to raise. So it makes sense. I think, we haven't gone through the specific exercise of listing who the actual donors are, but just building that donor list or potential donor list is a great tool too. So it's connecting and making a lot of sense.
Okay. Yeah, and make sure that you go across the spectrum because sometimes people forget private industry. And I worked in private industry for over 20 years, and I can tell you that the culture and the large companies that you see on the skyscrapers in your community, they want to be a part of the community. And you need to tackle that in a way that you say, let's look at their what about page at their website to see who the VPs are, the senior VPs, and each business unit that you look at will give you a VP, and each business unit is normally doing their own thing in the community. And if they don't have individuals coming up to them sharing stuff, or employees saying, this is happening in my community, I want you to support it, then they're going to go with the big dogs, Red Cross, stuff that they can just put down there to help the employees know that they care about the community. Do not leave out private industry. The thing about building relationships and strategy is being able to do what we call in the marketing business a cold call. A cold call is somebody you don't know, but you schedule an appointment with them. And when you do that, then you have to have two things. You have to have a presentation that you've already told them that you're willing to share some information about your thing. And it doesn't have to be long, 2 pages, 1 page, enough that they can share it, a website that they can see, that you can pull up, that they can look at afterwards. And the second thing you need to have, if you're not the person to talk about the organization, you need to have a sidekick, somebody that can present the information in a short, sweet way that always has a what if you're involved in our community, in our organization. We're helping the community. And matter of fact, we know that there's several employees that work for you that is a part of the community, and that's the kind of thing you want to do. And that helps you build relationships. Once you build relationships, you can do 2 things. You can answer the grant application because they know who you are, or you can do an unsolicited proposal right after the meeting. Ask your folks, do we want people to come in that can come in for 2 days to do some kind of workshop? Are we requesting people? Are we requesting money? Are we requesting the organization, the private industry to give us laptops or to give us tablets? Know exactly what you want from them. Everything that you request is not always money. Um, any comments, Ron? Did you?
Yeah, I'm seeing a question from Tiffany Page in the chat, and she's asking, are there opportunities for grants for profit I assume for profit companies? And if not, is fiscal sponsorship an option? And she's also asking, what are the requirements for a nonprofit to fiscally sponsor a for-profit? Okay.
So that was about 4 questions. So give me one at a time and let me
Okay,
answer.
so are there opportunities for grants for for-profit companies?
Yes, for the for-profit companies, they're normally unsolicited grants, or what I call unsolicited proposals. And an unsolicited proposal is that you find a person that you built a relationship with, and you submit what your needs are. Did that answer your question, Tiffany? Okay, what's the second question?
If not, is fiscal sponsorship an option?
You can
And
actually do that. It's not either or. Go in knowing what you want to do. Okay, this is with your smaller team of people who think like you, marketing people, which or people who are heads of different subcommittees. You have a meeting with them. You say to them, if we had the opportunity to go after for-profits, parentheses, private industry, money, products, what do we really want from them? And what is our message to them? You know, because their people are very valuable. It's like getting an expert without paying thousands of dollars. So don't leave those out. You know, once you target the for-profits slash private industry organization, like when I was a part of SAIC, we did tutoring. We did tutoring. And so if you have a program where you're tutoring folks, then that's what you want from them. You want somebody in these different categories. What is it? They're going to say for tutoring, they're going to ask you what age group, what grade, what's the skill that we're trying to tutor for? Is it math, English, whatever? Does it? Am I answering your question, Tiffany? Okay.
all right, and the
Okay.
third question she asks is, what are the requirements for a nonprofit to physically sponsor a for-profit entity? And I've not,
I was going to say. Go
huh?
ahead. Go ahead, Ron.
I've not seen that kind of relationship. I've seen nonprofit partner with for-profits, but I've not experienced a nonprofit that was a fiscal responsible, a fiscal agent for a for-profit business.
Right. Because the other thing too is you can't intertwine the money type thing that's accountable through audits and stuff like that. So I haven't seen it. I don't know of it. I can't say it doesn't exist. But, I would try to stay real clean on how things are given to you, document everything, that type of thing. So
I
I,
mean,
I think,
I had a question
Thank
there.
you. Thank you.
I had a question
okay.
there. In this case, shared capital, which is one of the CDFIs, which is also, I guess I'm trying to see, was that a nonprofit or was that a CDFI that was able to make investments in small businesses? Then there's also the other thing of the charitable loan fund, where certain nonprofits are kind of sending up funds for small businesses that are for profit.
Share Capital is a nonprofit cooperative.
Okay.
Yeah, and so they're getting their funding directly from the U.S. Treasury through the
But they,
CDFI fund. So and their mission is to support funding cooperatively owned business as they are structured. Because we've now learned that co-ops can structure in different ways, LLCs as well as Incs, as well as nonprofits. So that's what their mission-driven work is
but those
around.
are for-profit cooperatives, though. Some of those that they
Yeah,
invest in.
the LLC is a for-profit in many ways, and so
So
they
there
do
are some
support.
vehicles, yeah.
Huh?
I mean, I guess I'm just trying to get clarity if there are some vehicles, to Tiffany's point, where, I mean, it's probably, you know, looking for a needle in a haystack, but there are some organizations that are, there's kind of new types of organizations that are set up to make investments in small
Well,
businesses.
Tiffany's question was relative to physically sponsoring. I mean, that means that it's a for-profit agency, but the nonprofit is using its nonprofit status to be the fiscal agent. That's where her question was around. And like I said, I've never seen that and in that
Yeah.
kind of relationship. I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
saying
And,
that's That's
Well,
funny.
it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, but if you want to do something like that, you have to do the research to do it. The you know, the federal government agencies, especially around health, put out a lot of grants that they don't consider RFPs. These are grants. I responded to them. Anybody can go after them, but
Hmm.
the hierarchy in your organization um, depends on whether you actually receive that type of money. So,
Yeah,
like I said, you have to really do the research to determine that. And then, if you've done the research and there's things that you want to talk to Ron or myself about, we can do it in a smaller group. So, I'm not going to say I know everything about grants and I don't know everything about proposals because it changes all the
yeah,
time. And
yeah.
with the new, go ahead, Ryan.
No. I just want to just to share our recent experience with the grant opportunity
Right.
from the City Foundation. And so we met every criteria of the grant except one, and that was that we had a 1 year independent audited financial statement. And so because our revenue has never required us, state or federal, to do a independent audit, we've not done an independent audit. We file our 990s every year with the Internal Revenue Services, but this particular grantee is requiring a 1 year financial independent audit be a part of your eligibility requirement to apply for this grant. And so it kicked us out the box. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
in talking with them, they shared with us that they had over the years had required 3 years of of audited reports, and so they have now tailored it down to just wanting to use 1 year of audit report, but you have to have at least 1 year of audit report to apply for their grant funding.
And and this is an important point because I was talking about non-compliant. Um, when Ron shared the grant application with me and we looked over it, the first thing we looked at is, do we qualify? Now, if Ron was an experience in doing grants, and if I was not, we would have applied for it anyway. And we would have been waiting. And when you got rejected, if you asked, and you can always ask this, go back to the grantor and say, why did we not get the grant? So that improves your process. They can say, they would have said, you were non-compliant because of because of the audit. And so we didn't even look at your application. So that's what I'm saying. First, make sure you're eligible for the grant, because if you're not, then they will not even look at your application. So sometimes it's better to start off with smaller grants within your community at the city, at the state, the county level to get yourself familiar with all the criteria. Because when we get into actually writing a grant, I'm going to tell you some other things that's going to knock you out of the competition. But during this period, the strategy period, is the most important period of applying for something. And I'll tell you from my experience dealing with companies, and I work with a lot of different companies as an employee and then also as having my own company now for 5 years. I work with SAIC, I work with Leidos, I work with CSC, I work with CACI, I work with Northrop Grumman. So I got a lot of large business under my belt. And I'm telling you, they start looking at their smallest proposals that for them may be 400,000, not even in the millions or the billions. They start looking at a year out. A year out, they're doing strategy. A year out, they're identifying who the key players are in the government so that they can submit a proposal. So why am I telling you this? In a year out, you guys should be looking at the different donors and seeing if there's some type of relationship you can build with them. A year out, you should be looking at what unsolicited proposals you want to target at different private industries. Business development and marketing is a key factor in how you get money and products. And so the reason why I'm saying that is because every person that I'm talking to on the phone today, you are the BD, you are the marketing, and you are the lead for that. You are the person that is manipulating, determining the pipeline. You put everything in a pipeline, if you don't know, is every opportunity that you want to go after for the next 2 years is listed there. And that's the pipeline where you decide that you want to build that relationship with the people involved. And you find out who are the money givers, who are the people who are influencing that. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. I don't want to hop on this too much, but it's so important. It's so important for nonprofits. You'll have a leg up when you can do that. And if you have a board that represents your nonprofit, and I apologize for saying this before I say it, but they're useless if they're not getting you money or products. If they're not getting you money or products, they're useless, and they're using your organization as a means to elevate themselves to their next position. So, what do we do about that? What we do is we get the next board meeting, present the pipeline, and says we want to build a pipeline. And in this pipeline, I need to know who do you influence in the community that can possibly give us money if we do the marketing and you open the door to let us in. That's what you want to do. Strategy. That is the key to getting money and products. Or you can struggle along hoping that somebody will understand what you're doing. So, okay. So that flows right into the pipeline. And I define what a pipeline is. The other thing that you want to do is, for you, business intelligence is actually talking to other nonprofits. And this can be kind of tricky because sometimes a nonprofit thinks that if I get money, then I can't talk to you because you might get money and I might not get the money. But that's not true, because when you're talking about business intelligence, you're talking about larger grants where they may be given out. Ron, how much was that grant that they gave that we responded to? How much money was that grant? You're on mute, Ron.
Oh, thank you. The total grant amount that they were distributing was over $978,000, and they had not identified a specific amount that you could apply for. That was an open-ended request that you could apply for whatever you thought you were able to substantiate. But the total amount we had was probably less than $1 million for, and they were looking at doing probably, I think the number was 16 to 20 grants they wanted to fund.
So this is why you share information, because when you share information, you may not qualify, but it's a tool. Every person on this phone or line or screen or a conference call should be able to have a smaller meeting with Ron, and so the academy is just not to learn. The academy is to learn and then do. So you guys should have smaller meetings where y'all just talk about different strategies for grants and maybe different grant opportunities and what the dollar amount is. And so that it's not threatening to you, target in a year. Let's talk about what kind of pipeline we want to see each one of us have in a year. And let's talk about what kind of grantors can give us possibly what we want and stuff. That's the kind of thing that you want to do. You're not in it by yourself. Even large businesses, business intelligence is that when they're a year out and 2 years out, they're looking at other companies they can team up with to get the work, because they realize they can't do it all by themselves, or they realize that they need the cooperation and collaboration of another company. See yourself as a collaborator in this world. And that's my recommendation to you guys. Because, like I said, if you talk about a year out, you don't feel threatened about what's happening this year. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions about pipelines? Okay. So let's talk about communication. So when in a strategy of getting money or a product or service from a for-profit or from a grantor, you have to have a strategy for it. So the first thing you cannot do is take off your website everything you have and then spew it out to the person you're meeting with. So that's a no-no. Because they can go to your website, and they probably went to your website before you even sat down with them, and they decided to do it. Has anybody heard of what I call an elevator speech? Anybody heard of that term before? Okay. So the elevator speech is a concept that, for those who don't know, if you got on the elevator with me and you wanted me to do a respond to a RFP, and you have, let's put it this way, we'll say you have limited money, but you're like, I want you, Maxine. That's what you're saying to your people. You get on the elevator with me on the first floor, and I'm getting off at the 8th floor. The question is, what are you going to say to me in order to make sure that I consider working with you on a project? What are the 3 key things you're going to tell me? That's what an elevator speech is. That is something that is tailored for each of the customers that you're going to talk to. Some of the similarities about the company is going to be the same, but the intro on how you get them hooked and what you are asking for is different. Does that make sense? Any questions around that? So, believe it or not, in private industry, for profit, we have sessions on elevator speeches. What are we going to say? And we have a small team of people, and I'm only in the room, of what we want to say and what we don't want to say. And starting off with my organization, blah, 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 is the wrong first start for an elevator speech. If I'm talking to you and you're interested in me, you want me to know that I understand who you are. So the first thing you want to do is as a business development person, you want to tell them that you know who they are and who their company represents and what good work they've done. And, you know, that's what you start off with. And when you focus on what their company has done, you want to make sure it's in the area that you're interested in getting the product, the money, or the services. Okay? So a lot of BD folks, sorry, Ryan, for saying this, they like to talk about themselves and their company, and then I'm already at the eighth floor, and you haven't told me what you want from me. You
Oh,
can't talk because you're on mute. You was on mute. You can't talk.
well, is that what I do?
No, but I'm saying you know that there are BD folks that do that.
Oh,
And
yeah,
then
well,
yeah, and then when they get back, they're like, you know what? I forgot to say this, and that because they didn't have it in their mind. What are the three things I want to share? You know, and because you guys represent your organization, you should always be on blast about that. You should be a robot able to pull out things out of your hat. And if you can't, then you have to start working on that because that gets you in the door, you know.
Oh,
So
also, sorry, just there was a question in the chat from Ms. Page, and she asked, what would be the key things or terms that grantors are looking for?
So the key things that a grantor is looking for is, and we'll get more into it. One is, can your company or organization, can you sustain the program that you're asking money for?
That's a big question.
Right. And if you cannot sustain the program, then most likely you won't get the money. Because you might have a great application proposal, you want to do a lot of things, but they want to know that next year, without their money, you're still going forward. The other thing they want to know, what's important to them, is staffing. They don't want to pay for staffing unless they say they want to pay for staffing. You know, so if you wrap your budget into staffing and 50% of the budget is staffing, then they know you can't sustain the program if they're not there because now they're paying for staffing, they're paying for program materials, they're paying, they just see themselves as not really aiding you, but actually now you became a part of their company and that's not what they want. Or the foundation is like, this is only a 1 year grant and that's all I'm interested. And the third thing that is really important to them is that they want to know that the program has outcomes. What will be the outcome for the community? What will be the outcome for the grantor that they can go and have bragging rights on? What's the outcome? So you have and I'll just say, so you have a tennis camp, and but the kids play tennis, but the outcome is doesn't have anything. So they learn how to play tennis. But if the outcome is training people to think and process information and make good decisions because you have to do that on a tennis court, then you have an achievable dream. In Hampton, when they started the achievable dream, it was to create an environment where kids after school and during school would learn concepts about life life issues, and they would carry that on to the tennis court. Did I answer your question, Tiffany? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So let's go into pre-grant writing. So you get the application and you read it and you're like, that's the application for me, money, money, money. And then you read it a third time and you're like, wait a minute, we're not even eligible for this. So, and not only does that happen with grant applications, that happens with RFPs that come from the government. Because everybody's like seeing the dollars and the services, and then as the compliant person for the proposal, I'm like, well, we don't qualify for this, this, and that. So you have to have, you guys are the first line of qualification for every grant that you decide to submit to. And then you need to have, I always say on my team, I want a naysayer. I want somebody who, every time you say something, they have something negative to say to it. Those are the people that help you win. They're the people you don't like to sit next to at lunch, but they're the people that help you win because they will spot something that is not correct. They are the detailed people. So you want one person that's a naysayer. When I do proposals and I do them for billions of dollars, I'm doing one right now. I want that naysayer in the room, on the phone, complaining about ABC, and I'm taking notes, and then I'm fixing it, right? Because they're the people who have the critical eye. And then you always going to have another person in the room that whatever you say yes to, they said yes to, but they said it in a different way, okay? But you want three people in the room that can do an analogy or analyze the application. And once you do that, then, and you're eligible, then the next step is you want to pull together your company profile information, and the stuff that you see on the third bullet is stuff that you should have at a hand. It should be in your hand, able on a sheet of paper, able to do at any time. Because when you start doing the grants, they will ask you one of these questions and you need to be able to respond to it. So a part of pre-grant writing is pulling together the company profile information. You know, um, sometimes if you don't have some of this, you can't even fill out the information. So, for example, I was supporting my church in writing a grant for, which is the easiest grants to write if you guys haven't written a Walmart grant for money. And the one thing, we couldn't even finish the application because of the tax reporting number was, as far as they was concerned, was incorrect because of the fact that um, the church had put the national convention's reporting number for all these years. And I said, guys, we can't get a grant without having our own. So all of these little things you need to do. Now, a lot of times for the reporting number, it's you might have your social security number there as a substitute, which is something that you can do as a nonprofit organization and stuff. But the company profile information is the username information you have to fill out on these electronic applications, even to see what you're going to apply for. So, Ron, I just want you to share the application that the organization wasn't eligible for, before we even saw the application, what are two things that they wanted you to do?
In terms of the application, the recent one I just with City Foundation.
Yeah, you had to. Uh, um, the one thing you had to do was you had to show that you were eligible, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Before
yes,
they.
yes. So they on their initial inquiry, you have to answer a series of questions, which will electronically either approve you or disapprove you. And so when it came down to every question, we answered correctly. Um, and when it came down to the question around the audit, we said no, we didn't have a 1 year audit, and so automatically, electronically, we were denied even being approved to go forward on the next step. So which
And the
means
next.
the next step would have been even for us to be eligible would have been to have been able to have the ability to even access the application. So we were vetted out early on based on that one question around not having the 1 year independent financial audit completed.
Right. So that's what I'm trying to say in terms of find out if you're eligible, fill out the application. Then the next step is then get your team of people together, a small team of people that are going to support you as you write the grant. You want to get those folks together, and what you want to do at that point is gather information. Now, you have a mission statement, a strategy plan, and then you want to customize the organization description. So let's talk about each one. The mission statement. There, normally, a mission statement is really long and it has subcategories to it. But if you're going to go after, let's say, laptops, and it's an education thing, your mission statement that you have for your organization, maybe a sub portion of it is about education. And that's the mission statement that you want to pull out and then elaborate on. Okay. By giving them your whole mission statement, copying and pasting from your website or from your manual, it's not helpful because it talks about a lot of different things. Does that make sense? Okay, if you don't have a mission statement, it's an opportunity for you to create a mission statement. Because once you have a mission statement, it allows you to narrow the opportunities or the areas that you're going to work in, right? You can't be all things to all people. And each person that's on the phone most likely have decided their passion, and out of that passion is the organization that you are now a nonprofit part of. Okay, so under that mission statement, then you want to say, if it's education, what is your objective? What are you trying to do? What do you want the outcome to be? How does a donor play into that? So you ask those questions to the small group, you guys define it, and then you put in program goals. The goals should directly relate to the objectives that you're trying to do. Then you have your strategy plan. So the grant areas, if it's an education grant, may talk about 4 things that they're going to supply money for. So they give you a wide range of the 4 different areas. It can be in helping minority kids understand, learn computers or um, media, or it's maybe developing writing skills for kids, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so your strategy plan should align with your program goals that aligns with your objectives. So there should be a, you should be able to say, well, we're going to go after the developing writing skills, and the goal is for to have individuals learn how to think and write, and be able and gear them to being able to go to college, whatever, or go into technology, documentation, whatever. So do you guys see what how I'm trying to connect the dots here?
Mm.
Okay.
Maxine, can I interject one
Sure.
off one thing into this conversation? Um, Far too often, and this is what I've learned just recently myself, and I've been a person who's incorrectly thought this as well, is that when you look at your grant and you look at what you're trying to ask for, we think that because of what we're doing, we can ask for a set amount of dollars to support the initiative that we want to see funded. Well, what I've come to understand now that the foundations have a matrix for determining how much you can apply for. And the matrix is that you can't apply for more than 10% of your operating budget. So if you're an organization that are operating with a $20,000 or $100,000 or $200,000 operating budget, the foundation will not support more than 10% of that operating budget. So there's no open dollar amount, as some of us may have thought in the past, that we can apply for. Because again, it goes back to what you're saying about capacity and outcomes. So be mindful that when you're submitting these grant applications, look at what your operating budgets are, and knowing that for the most part, you're not going to be able to get more than 10% of that operating budget that you currently have in place. And so that was a real eye-awakening for me last year, going after some grants and talking with the foundation folks, as you said, and following up how they were determining our award. And it was based on this 10% matrix. And some of those grant applications, when you go in, will also have that embedded already in their application. So when you put in the dollar amount, it automatically calibrates to 10% of your operating budget. So just want to let folks know that as well as they proceed forward in terms of looking at some of these grant opportunities as well.
Yeah, and that's why small budgets are better than grant applications are better than larger ones. Sometimes there could be a collaboration between two nonprofits to go after a grant, which would be very helpful to you guys too, because collectively you can say, this is the amount of money that we have. And
Right.
then you guys decide how the program is going to be split between the two areas. But that's why in this presentation I have unsolicited proposals, because a lot of times you start small with unsolicited proposals. You start small with leaning on city council and other areas, other organizations in your area to get the money that you can't get from a large grantor. So anything else? Any other questions around or statements around gathering the material? And the organizational background, which I didn't talk a lot about, it's very important. You know, a lot of times what we think is like organization background, and we don't see where that would go. There's always an executive summary or introduction that you want to put in front of your grant, and talking about all of the outcomes and all of the things that you've done in the community helps with them looking at your application and seeing how they can be helpful to you. Okay, so that's a good segue into executive summary. A lot of times, folks don't spend a lot of time on the introduction, the executive summary. They may not call it an executive summary. They may call it an introduction. They may say, tell me about the organization. That's your executive summary. There you want to be able to talk about what stands out or what is differentiating about your organization. Now, remember, you're thinking, well, why are you saying that, Maxine? And the reason why I'm saying that is because of the fact your competition now is everybody else that's applying. That's your competition. So if you just throw together a grant and just apply, blah, 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 we'll see if we get money. Guess what? You won't get anything because somebody said in their application that they're going to do X, Y, Z for this education money. And that was a little different than what everybody else said they were going to do. And it seemed feasible. Don't talk about things that are not feasible. When they look at your budget, if your budget doesn't connect to the program, it's not feasible. If your budget doesn't allow you to sustain the program once you get the money, then they're going to say it's not feasible. It's too much risk for them. So in the executive summary, it's your opportunity to convince them that you have the capacity to do whatever you're stating you can do. Michelle, you have is there something in the chat?
Yeah, there was actually a question from Ms. Page, and she asked, what is the critical information that is needed in the strategic plan?
That's needed in what?
In the strategic plan.
In the strategic plan, the critical information that you should have is one, what is what are you going after? Define that from a strategic way. What are we going after as an organization? That's one. And this, when I say what are we going after, I'm not talking about one time. I'm talking about looking at it from an annual for a year. What are we actually going after for a year? What are we trying to accomplish? And then once you understand what you're trying to accomplish and you can state what we're going after, then you're going to say, how are we going to do it? Who is going to be involved? That's your plan. And then how are we going to communicate that? So, and in that, then you can say, we're going to market it this way. We're going to go after these companies. We're going to do that. And then that's your plan. And then under that is your pipeline. So if I have a strategic plan for going after funding, then that's how I'm going to do it. And then you need to separate it by profit, nonprofit. How am I going to do follow-ups? That's getting down into the details, but that's important because if Tiffany, if you meet with someone, then you need someone else in your organization to send a follow-up letter. And you need to know what that's going to say. And that should be something like a general letter that's fairly customized, just customized in a minor way to different people. Because while you're going after somebody and talking to them from a marketing perspective, guess what? You don't have the time to go back to the office and write the letter. But if you have someone that can do that for you, and you guys have these prefab letters that you can send out, thank you so much for meeting with me today. And then you tell them, that is what you need to do. That is helpful. And then if your organization and you define that there's 3 areas or 2 areas that you're going after, then you need to decide which of those areas can bring you the most products for unsolicited proposals. And then go to the next one. which of them can I do for grants? And what kind of grants are they going to be? And do I have a website? How many people know what website to go to for grants? Just kind of raise your hand like you just don't care. Okay. I had to put that in there. I'm a little silly.
Maxine, I'm glad you said that. I sent Michelle, and she's going to forward out to everyone in this on this link two sources of grant opportunities, federal, state, and nationwide nonprofits. So she'll be forwarding out those two links out to everybody so they can look at some national and local grant funding opportunities.
Okay, good. Because the pre-writing
Thank
stage.
you.
Okay. Any other questions before I get back to the pre-writing? Because everything's going to come back to that strategy thing. And that's why I started with it. But for the pre-writing, for the executive summary, understanding your experience and performance, every time I work with nonprofits, I find out that that's the biggest gap because you're always doing something to work in the community. No one is writing up your experience of what you've done already, which now we call past performance or we call project descriptions. And that is an important part in your response. So I want you guys to jot down this is that look back in the last 3 years. With experience, you can go back the last 5 years, technically. Look back in the last 5 years, and I want you to jot down for each year a program, a project that you guys did, and what was the success of it, how many people was involved, um, who was the donor or donors, and then I want you to be able to write a little description about the program or the project. And I want you to think back, if you can, and maybe look back for the budget. And what's the reason why I'm asking you for that is because when you talk about the program that you want to do for the grantor, and you say to yourself, how do I substantiate my ability and capacity and capabilities to do this? You can then give them examples. And what I'm asking you to write down are the examples that you can give them in the appropriate places. And you can say, we understand what it takes to sustain this program because experience number 1 started in this year and it is still going on, but we started off with a grant from XYZ or whatever. Does that make sense?
There's also a question in the chat from Brianna, and she asked, what about a newly started business?
For a newly started business, then you don't have the experience that you can jot down from a business perspective for the company itself, but for a newly started business, then it's on you. Jot down the different business related opportunities that you've been involved with that were successful, that had a budget that you did, and that is what you're going to use them to have confidence in you as a new business. So what I did, I'll share what I did starting the business that I started. When I was working as a manager for senior proposal managers at CSC, I said, I'm getting older. I want to be able to work when I want to work, blah, blah, blah. So I'm gonna, and I was hiring in consultants. And so I started asking the consultants, how did you start your business? And they started giving me answers. So then I started making a list of people that I work with that had a good rapport with me. I had a good rapport with them. We did work together, and I jotted them down. And then I started talking to VPs around the company that I work with, letting them know that this was what I saw myself doing. And they were very supportive. So when I actually got my first job, first consulting job, it was with CSC. No, it was with SAIC. And because I had worked with them before, and they're like, oh, you're consulting? Definitely, we'll go with you. So when you start a new business, you're going to lean on people that know you, your capability, that understand that you can pull this program off that you're going after. And those are the people that you want to get quotes from, because you're writing a proposal or you're doing an unsolicited one, or you want to write quotes about what you've done so that they know. And if you, let me see if that answered. Did that answer your question, Brianna?
Yes, that did answer my question.
Okay, so new business have the same opportunity to do it, and sometimes you can go and find grants that are for new nonprofits that are looking to support the community. You know, a lot of times you want to start in your county, in your city, with the if you start a board, if you have a board of directors, remember they're not there to look pretty. They're there to fund you, so you can ask them for some private or nonprofit organizations that can support your business or funding. Um, Funding is really important because a lot of times, because we do need the money, we think of funding as only monetary. But remember that you can get from your board or from other outside organizations, you can get services. So, what are services? Services are you can get people who are able to have expertise in different areas. You can get people who are saying, hey, I don't have expertise. I don't have any expertise, so they don't think of, but I can tutor. So that's expertise in itself, right? You can get people that you can throw uh, like a race for whatever, for youth, a race for this. And you can ask people that can't really run or walk or don't want to um, maybe donate $50 and then make it a challenge, right? Um, if you have children or youth that you're working with, you can let them be in the race. They are the people racing, and they have to go out and find money, sponsor money for opportunities. So I'm throwing out different funding things because a lot of times we think that it's got to be these big donors, but if let's say if you had some type of let's say festival, and you didn't get anyone like really popular, like a star, but you got a star that's in your community, then they can sponsor that. Like for example, a star within the community would be maybe you got some, like the orchestra that's at the high school, and they're known for being great. Let your imagination be a part of the strategy session that you're going to have for the type of funding that you want. And if you can do something every year and bring in X amount of dollars every year, a banquet, you know, that is going to be really good. Basically, what I'm trying to say to you is that identify what the grant is and the type of money that you want. Do that first, and then you will be able to think of ways that you can annually receive something. So, does that make sense? Can somebody tell me maybe in their organization something that they could go after in terms of something annually, maybe some type of activity or festival or whatever? Anybody have any ideas? No ideas are wrong.
I like the idea of the community, like the get together. I work with a restaurant. And so one of the things that the restaurant owner suggested is that, I could use his space to actually, raise money, and then he would give like a portion of the proceeds. And one of the things that we're thinking about doing with our youth program is also having the youth come in and do things as well at the restaurant, and use that as a fundraiser for them as well. So that's one of the things that we were thinking of.
And that's perfect because when I was a part of one organization, what we did is we had the organization, we brought people in, but the key here is that we had envelopes on the table for people to put their donations in. So it wasn't like a official call for donations. Like, people get tired, oh, are they going to ask us again for money? But on the table. And then when we had the speaker then said at the end, if you haven't filled out the envelopes of the donation, no matter how much it is, then fill it out now and whatever. So, that's something that is important to do. I'm trying to think of, because I can
Oh, and
never.
not to interrupt, but we were thinking of taking a 15-minute break soon, maybe from
Uh-huh.
now to about 11:45, just to give people some time to refresh.
Uh-huh. That's good. Cash App. That is a good way. And you can just put the Cash App information on the table because you can tell I'm old school. I hit the envelopes, but Cash App, put it on the table at the events, and Tiffany, that's a fantastic one. The other thing too is you could do restaurant tasting there. So the restaurant it's not only just an event and you're hoping somebody purchase something, but with the restaurant tasting, you can do like it's $10 to go, which goes to the restaurant for the tasting, and it's not a lot of, it's not an entree, but they can taste some of their favorite foods. Or what you can do is have it outside now that it's summertime and do 3 restaurants and do like a wine tasting, but it's a food tasting and it takes money. So get creative. That's what you have to do. And Michelle, just wave your hands when you want me to stop.
Thank you.
Uh, yeah. So think of something that your organization is doing that you can now turn it into a summer activity to raise money. And for those who are just starting their nonprofit, think of something that you can do that people can get to know who you are. And then it can be like a small festival of events, like maybe every Saturday. When I started my tennis organization, the one thing I did is I went to all the recreation centers and I went to City Hall and I asked them, I said, can I start this? This is for low income families because the country clubs people play tennis in, and for low income, can I borrow your courts, which was free, and go to the recreation centers. And they said, as long as you go to all the recreation centers, you can't just go to some. So I stood there with my little sign, and I had people sign up for tennis, and I sustained that organization until I left Hampton Roads, and I ended up having tennis players that were number one, two, or three on their team at all the high schools by the time I left, because they started with me when they were in junior high or when they were below that. So take advantage and get creative. And you don't have to get, especially if you're starting an organization and you're new at it, go to where people, and I know the pandemic is over, kind of over, so it may be a good opportunity to sign up for the community centers where you can then go and introduce yourself. I'm starting this organization. I want you to come, and you some kind of giveaway, some kind of gimmick, some kind of hook them in, and then give them what you need to tell them, and then go from there. Brittany, does that make sense for a new business, starting a new business? I don't know if she heard me or whatever. Or she's
I think you
talking to
meant
me.
Brianna, and I was
Oh,
thinking if you could just
Brianna,
like
I'm sorry. Brianna, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because I want folks to be able to know that if you're starting something new, it's definitely it's not too late to set up everything in terms of strategy, in terms of marketing, in terms of getting your name out there. And
Mhm.
for those
Mhm.
who aren't new, make sure you get your name out there every year, twice a year. It should be two things that you plan twice a year just for awareness.
Okay.
Okay, so we can just take the break now, and it'll be
Okay.
15 minutes, so maybe come back around um 11:50. That's all right, Ron?
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, Michelle.
I
This
have the
conference will now be recorded.
so I have the new slide up called grant writing. So this is actually getting into writing of a grant. So the first thing is the project summary, or sometimes called the executive summary. Sometimes lately it's just the introduction. But before you write it, you need to state what the grantor's focus is. Their, their focus for this particular grant for your organization, because you have some knowledge about the grantor, is XYZ. If you're writing a proposal, and we'll get into that later, it's actually what the problem is. What are we trying to solve? So for a grantor, it's the same thing, but you're telling them what you can help, what they can help you solve this problem. And then once you do that, then you want to talk about what the output driven discriminators are. What are you going to accomplish? The outcome is more important to the grantor as they begin to, before they read um, your the application, than anything else, because they have to justify why you're receiving the money, and then you want to talk about your experience and performance that you've done in the community. Now notice, now that we're writing the grant, notice that we have incorporated everything we've talked about before. You see that? You documented um, the experiences. We know what the outcome is going to be, and we know what the focus is. So everything that was up front, we talked about, um, already. So the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to get a problem statement. What are you requesting? And before you even write that statement, you have to know what the gap is in the community. And that grant application actually tells you what the gap is, because it tells you that this application is for X, Y. So because the grant is going to give money to these two areas, that's the gap. And the question is, can you fill the gap? So how are you going to fill the gap? Now, again, you should not be looking at the application and for the first time wondering what you're going to do, how you're going to fill it. This is already in place. You want to link the problem or the program to the funder's objectives. So if your program is going to provide adults with adult education, then it should be linked to the challenges that adults have when they have no technical or educational skills. And so your organization is focused on doing that. Now, the next thing, and the other challenge you have to do, and I kind of stated it with the tennis program that I started, you have to say that in the space within the community that you work in, and there's not enough people doing that same thing. So, there are some people and you acknowledge that, but the reason why it's still a challenge is because of this reason. And this is only like a paragraph, so we're not writing a book, we're writing a paragraph. The project summary is probably maybe 2 paragraphs, and at most a page. So your first draft of the project summary and the problem might be 2-3 pages. That's why you want other people, that you pull together a small committee of 3 or 4 people and let them redline it. Now, as I say to my proposal teams, I'm going to say the same thing to you guys. If you're a little soft and you don't like people to criticize you, then you're not the person to be on this team, because it's going to be rewritten like 10 to 20 times before it goes out the door, because you want the best work to go out the door. You want the best creativity to go out the door. So if you really don't want anyone to critique your work because you're perfect, then this is not grant writing, proposal writing is not for you. And I can tell you, being in the business for 20 plus years, that I've never submitted a proposal where we only had 3 rewrites. And in corporations, there's normally 3 reviews, and for every review, there's a rewrite. So you guys, people follow the leader. If the leader gets upset about taking out certain things in their version of the first draft, then other people will. However you set the stage is going to be how other people who are in this small group will feel about making changes. And sometimes your first thought and your first draft is really the end state, but it's only written a different way. So what if you want to stifle people from giving their advice, then get upset after they give you a red line. But that's why you have track changes too. Always put track changes on so that the original document can be seen, because you might want to bring something back to life. Does that make sense before we go into the mission, objectives, and goals?
Yeah, so I'm embracing the iterative process is key because what you start off with may not be what you end up with. So I totally agree.
Yeah, and I always think back to when you were in grade school and in junior high school and high school, how your papers got marked up so much. And a lot of people, you have to remember, they fall back into that state of mind. And so the best thing to do is help people know that it's okay to rewrite. They rewrote my stuff. So yeah.
So Maxine, let me ask a question in terms of for smaller capacity organizations. Who should they how should they be determining who should be the lead writer on a grant or a proposal?
Well, let me start off who I don't want to be the lead. I don't, because even if it's in private industry, I don't want the VP. I don't want the capture manager. I don't want the organization leader. Now, it just so happens, Ryan, when you and I did one together recently, you were able to get me the stuff in a timely manner. But everybody on the phone has so many other duties and responsibilities that if I'm waiting for you to write the application and grant, then it's going to be last minute, 3 days before it's due, or 2 days before it's due, and it's never been rewritten before, so all the mistakes are still there. So who do I really want? I want that person that you can depend on in the office or in the organization that is going to pull things together, and you have left what you believe the problem is, what the gap is. This is what we want to focus on, and you know that that person can start pulling the information into the application. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, it does.
Somebody was trying to say something. Anybody else? Okay. Um, because a lot of times you say, I know what I want to put into the application, but so that tells me that you haven't done the steps that we talked about prior to getting to this slide. And you need to also do that. Okay, so uh, again, that person, that individual should be able to say, this is the part of the mission we want to put in there, this is the goals, and these are the objectives for the program that can align to it. So you should be able to do that too. The individual that you have is the person that you can depend on. And you want to also have a portal or some place to put the document so other people can go in and read it and make changes to it. So it should not be on somebody's desktop, because it's something called, in my world, this single point of failure. And what that means is that when you have the single point of failure, the person who has it on their desktop, they get hit by a bus, they get sick, nobody can get it, and then we lose the bid. So there and I saw that we got something in the chat. Damon, you had something in the chat.
Yeah, no, I was just saying in our organization we use Google Suite. I mean, from folders to docs to spreadsheets, and are able to share and control permissions. And it's a relatively inexpensive tool. I think it's like $12 per person or something like that per month, which is a great tool.
Right. So you should use that and live by it and make everybody make their changes that way. And nobody gets a pass, not a VP, not a board member, not you guys get a pass to say, hey, could somebody put this up for me? I don't have time to do it. Can somebody post my changes? So none of that. Everybody has to be accountable. Okay. Okay, so writing the description, I always tell people, whether I'm in grant writing or proposal writing, it goes back to the English class where it was who, what, when, where, and how. So you have to be able to, when you talk about the program or the project that you're presenting in your grant or in the unsolicited proposal, who's going to do it? When will it happen? What is it all about? Where will it take place? How does it work? If you haven't answered that, then if I'm reading it, then I'm going to say, well, I don't have a date on this. I don't have a scheduled date on when something's going to happen. And I don't know who the people are going to be involved. So this is so basic that we learned this in elementary school, I believe. And I can tell you how old I am by saying it used to be called grade school. But anyway, you need to answer the who, what, when, where, and how for your program. So when you read it, if you're missing something, then that tells you that you missed it. And it will show later on. So what actions are you going to take and what is the outcome? Is the goal. The objectives are, how do you measure this? What are the achievable objectives that someone can understand and they can say? And even for new businesses, when you're doing your first project that you want to present to the city council, the recreation director, the social whomever at a university or whatever, you want to be able to take the project and break it into these parts. This is what my goal is. This is what my objectives are. This is how I'm going to implement it, and this is what the outcome will be. And this is how we're going to sustain it. Sustainability is very, very important, even with the outside programs. One of the things with the tennis thing, when once I got that going and they saw that the program was working, then the recreation department came back and said, well, you also have to do a program with these children and that are in Section 8 housing, which they weren't a part of the original program. And you have to adjust your fees for that. So the other important thing is sustainability. If you're getting a budget that like Ryan said, for first comers, let's say new people. So sustainability can also be this. So I'm going to give you real life examples. So for tennis, I sat down and I thought, I don't need to make the most money coming into this with a one-time large fee. What I need is people to be repeat returners. So what I said is that if you want beginner lessons, then you get 10 weeks and it costs you this amount of money. To get beginner 2 lessons, it's 10 weeks and it's this amount of money. To get intermediate lesson 1 or 2 or 3, to learn to do one-on-one, it's going to cost you this. So once I started, and I only have 10 people in a class. So once I started getting all my little boxes filled in with people, then you add up the money and you actually will have enough money to sustain the program. If they're coming for art classes, to understand color theory, just like college, it's going to cost you for 4 classes or 5 classes XYZ. To understand how to design a picture is going to cost you XYZ. So I'm hoping you guys see how you can incorporate sustainability into a program when you don't have the money for the program or you just got started as a nonprofit. So tell me if what I'm saying makes sense or it's not logical. Anyone?
It definitely makes, I'm sorry, I was going to say it definitely makes sense. It's definitely logical. I
Okay.
can see this. Yep.
Okay, good. So hopefully it's something that you guys can actually do. So whatever program that you're writing that grant for, you can talk about how you're going to sustain the program. That's a differentiator. That's something some of the other people will not do. And because they're only thinking about the money they're going to receive for that particular program. Okay, so the next thing is you got to track the project. Everything you do, if you haven't done it yet, is tracking your project. What do I mean by doing that? It's making sure that you count the number of people per session, per year, however the program is kicked off. For example, writing a grant, an unsolicited grant for the academy. You want to talk about each academy sessions. We had X amount of people. This was the outcome. Organizations were able to do X, Y, Z. You know, so you want to track the accomplishments, track the programs, try to bring in a star, a local star for the program that you're writing for. If it's in writing, try to look to see if community college has a writing expert that everybody wants to sit in their class, or if it's, whatever it is. The reason why you want to do that is because when I'm reading the program description, it's very impressive, and it's a discriminator to know that you're having an outside guest. So the tennis program was so successful, I was able to have a tennis camp. Well, I didn't have any money for the tennis camp, but I had already courts donated to me and rec centers. So what I needed was some professional players, but I had nobody in mind. But I had a relationship with 2 of the African American tennis pros at country clubs who were on my tennis teams. So I said, can you come out to the camp and just talk to them about tennis and maybe play a couple games with them, see how fast they can hit see if they can hit your return and stuff like that. So they said, okay. So that was my hook. And that was a discriminator for me in getting people to come. Because now I had to say, will the people who I work with every week, are they willing to come to a academy, a tennis program, um, and spend their money? That's going to be different money than their weekly sessions or monthly sessions. And that's how I got them hooked into it. And then I went to grocery stores and asked them if they could give me the food that they were getting ready to throw away. Because if you know gross supermarkets, if the food is bruised or bad, then before they were giving it to only the food banks, they used to throw them away. And so they're like, yeah, if you come in the morning time and get it, we'll give you fruit and vegetables and stuff. I'm like, that's a go and stuff. So, this is what you have to think creatively. You have to be an entrepreneur. You have to be willing to get outside of your comfort zone and solicit products to sustain you for stuff. And I'm going to jump back on the thing with Tiffany and the restaurant. Even if the restaurant, if she could get little coupons from the restaurant that you get 25% off if you go to the restaurant, that's helping the restaurant. But at the same time, for any program she does, that's allowing people to buy into whatever the program that she's trying to get money from. So, but the bottom line here is because I can go on and on and on. You have to track the project. Statistics, metrics is everything in writing a grant or a proposal. So, in writing a proposal, they measure your success by the schedule that you present to them and by the budget. A lot of times when we're writing a grant, it doesn't say give me your budget, so we don't give them a budget. It doesn't say give me your schedule, so it just says how you're going to do the work. But a part of substantiating what you're going to do is having the schedule. And you can say it's a notional schedule. This is our projected budget. Yes, quarterly and monthly finances from your company is normally something that they ask for.
I know too, some of the CDFIs that we apply for grants for, they aren't on traditional like annual quarterly schedules. They may start it in December or June. So knowing that ahead of time makes you more in line with when they have to report out. So that's helpful as well.
Yeah, that is very helpful, Damon. And then the other thing, if you can't change your reporting, then you just give them 2 years and let them know because of the way your annual budget is and audit is that it's between these two times, so that gives them a full year. Um, Normally, when I work with private sectors, the government is new budget year is in October. I think it is September, October when they actually give the funding out. Um, so a lot of times they'll just ask for your annual budget or they'll ask for your quarterly statement and stuff. But don't forget, that once you get the application, you can contact them anytime and ask questions, even if it's like the what you would call the craziest questions. You can ask them, I'm not sure what you want when you say project description. Can you give me an understanding of what that is? It, you know, it's better to ask than not and write down the wrong information. So you can ask questions all the time. So another thing that when you talk about your project description, there should be a section that you talk about how you manage the program or the project and how you manage the day-to-day staff. And a lot of things that I'm telling you on these two slides are things that are not going to be headers. They're not going to be subheaders. These are things that you need to put in to make your application complete. Sometimes they'll have how we manage and stuff, but you want to put this as a part of your project description where here's the description of the program, here's the schedule, here's the key people that are going to be there. And if you have key people, you want to also put a little a cameo of those people that's relevant to the project. And then you want to then also say this is how it's going to be managed. You want to present them with an application that makes them with no doubt that you can do the work. A lot of times when you don't add a schedule or you don't talk about how things are going to be managed, then they can't get an idea if you can do this in a professional manner. How you're going to track outcome, who is going to report out to you as the person in charge of the organization. So if you're not documenting this or you haven't documented it yet, you should try to do that. And make sure that the key people or key personnel, their bios are relevant. Don't just, pick it up and toss in a resume. You want a bio, unless they ask for a resume, you want a bio of how the person has done this type of work or this has been in charge of a program similar to this. I think we talked some about schedules or timeline. One of the things I want to say too about a timeline is that you should have a timeline on the application. If the application is a 30-day turnaround and you received it the first day of the month, you should be working backwards for delivery. So working backwards is saying it's due on the 30th. So on the calendar you put it's due on the 30th. So on the 30th I will submit, and then it's 2 days before that we're still reviewing it. Get an editor to look at it, someone who's good at editing to make sure not just that grammatically is correct, but that you didn't miss anything that they asked you to put in there. So, you're going to count out about 4 or 5 days from the due date at the end of the month where you're going to do what we call production. That's editing, formatting, reading it for the final time to make sure it makes sense, and then submitting it. You should at least have 2 reviews if it's a 30-day turnaround. And one review is going to be the final review, And then the next review will be, the first review will be the first draft. So you'll have a first draft review, and then the final review, and then production. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So you need that timeline because I know everyone's used to working with their back against the wall where they just have 3 days and then it's due and everybody gets together and they think it works like college and you try to get everything in and get that A or I'll take a C on the paper, whatever, but we all got it in on our group thing. No, proposals, grant proposal or anything, it doesn't work that way. Yes, and stuff. Um, so before I move to solicited proposals, um, any questions about grants that I didn't answer?
I just want to say thank you. This has been very helpful and like very practical in terms of how you listed it out and even answered the questions. I know that SMART goal is one thing that is really critical. So just appreciate it.
Welcome. Um, and uh, Michelle, make sure they get the slides at the end of this. So just to give you guys something to use as a means of pulling things together. So solicit proposals are different because they are coming out from the government or an agency within the government, or it can come out from even a private sector, for-profit company. The difference between them is that um, they require that you have that you follow the RFP. So it's the same thing that you have to do that you did with the grant to see if you're eligible to actually um, respond to it. They normally come a grant, a RFP, a solicited proposal is normally 30 days. Sometimes it's 45 days, but you guys wouldn't be doing those kind of grants. Those are grants for large for-profit companies. But the smaller grants that would come under an agency would be you. Now, the question is, how do I get these? Ron's going to send you guys something, but you guys can do some work on your own too. You can go to your state and you can talk to their business development agency where they put out their contracting agency, which put out solicited proposals. And you can ask them, what kind of proposals do you guys put out for nonprofits? Can a nonprofit um, team up with a small business and do a small business proposal that is something that that's that's in my wheelhouse? Those are the same kind of questions that you can answer. I don't know the answers to all of those questions, but that's why I know that the small business office has they have a mandate from the government to present so many awards to small businesses. You guys will probably know the small businesses within your community that are active in the community that and also the Small Business Association for the government puts out a list of companies that you may want to team with. So this is kind of like the next level kind of soliciting and proposal kind of work. So this may be something like a long-term goal. The reason why I put this here and didn't skip it and didn't just do grants and unsolicited proposals is because I think of a nonprofit structure the same way as I lived and seen a for-profit structure. I see that your grants and everything we talked about before is your short-term goals of getting money and products in constantly. I see the solicited proposal long-term goals as a way of saying that if I could get just one of those, it would cover us for 2 years or 3 years. If I team with a small business that that and when I say team with a small business, if you do adult education, this is for people who do adult type education with I would say technology, let's say um, community college, learning certain skills. Small businesses that team up with those kind of grants are people you want to connect with because your people can be those participants involved in that, and you can be a coordinator for getting participants there. You got to connect the dots and stuff. So that's why I'm thinking this is more of a long-term goal that you said, I'm going to build relationships. I'm going to find out about the small businesses that are working with, um, let's say, adult education or computer services or private sectors. I'm going to see if where they're getting their money from. I'm going to go talk to somebody in the small business office. They love to talk to people and stuff. And I'm going to get some information. This is where get, you're going to accomplish your goal. And if it's a long-term goal that you say, well, within a year, I'm going to be able to identify all of the things I just asked, then you move forward from there. So this is something that only the folks on the phone, or if you have a BD group, could possibly do. So you know what your limitations are and what you're able to do. So you can say, well, I got to scratch this out because I can't do that this year and stuff. Because I want to be practical. I don't want to just tell you it's pie in the sky because all of this is hard work and labor, but it's enjoyable work if you want to do it. But you'll see that on the last bullet, the information that you're looking for is no different than the information you had to give for the grant. So it's not like you're providing new information. It's the same information. The hard work is identifying stuff. It's the business development part. The easy work is knowing that you already have in place all of the profile information that you need. And the last bullet here, the congressional district grants, look for that. That's a big secret because they only let certain people know about all these things. But Google that and find out more information about that. So, and I really want you guys to have this slide because if you decide to go after it, if it falls in your lap, you're going to like, oh my gosh, this RFP is huge. And, it's got all these sections. So I tried to tell you what the RFP, how it's divided, and then what the proposal organization, which is your organization, who is responsible for doing certain things. So now the key here is that what is going to be different for you in terms of information is around the pricing and the contracts. But if you team up with a small business partner, you should be able to conquer that. But anything that has pricing attached to it means that it's what the government is expecting your organization to do in the pricing, how it's going to be packaged, what the inspections are going to be, so be C, D is important, along with some of the special contract information, because they will have a price proposal where all of that information goes in there. And I know this is like Greek to you. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I wanted you to be able to understand the layout of an RFP if that's something, especially those who are in the health field. If you team up with a company that's in there, and again, you know, set aside a whole bunch of questions to ask the small business office so that you can even see if it's something that you can even go after on your own, or if you have to be teamed up with something, or you have to be incorporated or whatever. That's, that's something for you guys to do. So once you have okay, we have a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This. Do does anyone know, or do you know if, like, as a nonprofit, you can still certify as an XBE, MBE, either on a state or even on a national level, like with the NMSDC, or you have to be a for-profit to qualify for those diverse certifications or classifications?
I don't know. Ron, do you
Uh,
know?
yes, yes. You can qualify in the SBA program as a nonprofit to do work with SBA, and you can in your own states. I know in Maryland and DC, and you have to check your state regs, but you can also get qualified as a minority business enterprise as well. It depends on the composition of your board when you're pursuing those kind of certifications. How many members of your board, your governing board, meet that criteria of being um, classified as minority? But you can, yes, qualify of that.
So any other questions? Okay. So when you get to the tools that you use, the Google tool is a good one. They have other tools, but uh, whichever one you use there. But there's some proposal tools that you need to use. And we've already talked a lot about compliance, and which is around qualification. So just remember, when you're doing a grant or you're doing a solicited proposal, if it says will, you have to respond to it. If it says shall, you have to respond to it. If it says maybe, you don't have to, but it would be good if you did. If it says must, you must respond to it. So when you're looking at a grant proposal, compliance matrix is being able to list out the requirements that says you will do this, you shall do this, you must do this in order to apply for our grant. So that's why I said read the grant 3 times, read the solicitation 3 times, because the first read is like, I'm so happy to have this come on my doorstep, to ring into my inbox. The second one is, this seems logical. I think we qualify for everything. The third read is, are we eligible because we qualify for everything, because we can answer all of the will, shall, must, maybe statements. So that's why I recommend reading it 3 times, because even as much as I've done proposals, I'm always excited when I get the first one and then I have to read it a second time to say, can we really support this? So if you use a spreadsheet and the first tab is for, these are all the will statements and stuff, then the second one is for an outline. And so once you do an outline, and that's going to be important. So the outline consists of this. Uh, Even if it's an application that has to be submitted electronically, you copy all of the questions that they have on from the electronic version into a hard copy so that you can respond to it. And that's your outline. So the first one might say, provide for us a description of your organization. So that's number one. Number two may say, tell us what the project description is. So that's the outline that you want to put on the spreadsheet on the second tab. The reason why I said put that down on the spreadsheet in the second tab is because the more folks work with the outline and filling in the outline, sometimes you lose information and you need an honest broker to go back and make sure that the outline we are still adhering to, that we haven't lost the section, we haven't done anything like that. Go ahead, somebody had a question. Okay. Did you have a question, Ron? Did you have a statement?
No. I'm just looking in the chat to see if anybody.
Okay. Okay. So then the planning stage is that. What's so funny?
I'm looking at Damon's comment about maniac management.
Yeah. Yeah. So the next thing you want to do is you want to then copy the outline to a third tab, and you want to then put in column 1, column 2, or 3, whichever column, however you want to do it. You need a column that say, here are the assigned people that are going to write to that one. The assigned people are the folks who are going to write the first draft. So you have a person that you designated as, I need you to lead this, but that's not the person that's writing everything. So it might be something around the budget. And so the person who's always doing the finance, you can put their name there. And let's say you need somebody who really knows how to sell the company, then you put their names in wherever you want to mention the company. And then before you know it, you have an outline, and beside each section, you have an assigned person, which is very important because then the person who's leading it is going to make sure that that assigned person does what they're supposed to do before the first review. And then the next column is going to be your review dates. So, you want to be able to say that on the 15th of that month, we're going to have our first draft review. The person who's leading it will communicate to all persons that the first review is on the 15th. Please submit your drafts on the 13th. And the reason why you do it early is because you don't want people to miss the 15th. And he can start pushing people who haven't submitted their draft. So this is the same concept that you would use in a grant, and everything. So, and we know that everyone that's on the phone, it may be too busy to take the lead in doing all that. So you need to ask somebody to be the leader for this particular grant, and choose somebody different for the next one. And then you can see how things fall out in your organization. You might have a person that says, hey, I love doing this. And then that's your grant and proposal writer.
Maxine, question for you. Over the last probably 3 to 4 months, we've been doing some real work about expanding our board and our capacity. And so, are there any suggestions that you would like to provide when you don't have the internal capacity to segment the work, but how you can still maybe recruit externally skill sets to help you get the work done in terms of writing proposals or responding to grant opportunities?
Yeah. Um, I can think of a couple of creative ways, so and you guys can decide if it's good for you or not. But there's a lot of children and I say children, teenagers in the AP program at your local school or church that you know of who need to have an internship somewhere uh, as something to put on to their college application. And I would go there first, and then I would have, before I even went there, I would have a description of their work. So they're going to be working with your grant or organization. They already have some writing skills, so therefore you know that they understand the components of writing, the who, what, when, or whatever. They're going to actually go to college. So that's one thing. I would go there first because that's free labor. And one is that with the free labor that you get, you're getting back the the kids are getting back the opportunity to put it on their college application. The second thing that I would do is um, if you don't have a lot of resources within the organization, the second thing I would do is then go to college internships to see if you could do that. And some of the college internships are paid and some are unpaid. So I would I would use that route. Those are the two things I can do. I would say do if you need it to do that. And the other thing to do is if you know of people who do proposals and grants within your community, the one thing you can do is say, hey, I like to, enlist you to do a proposal for me, a grant for me, and can't pay you, but it's an opportunity for you to do something for the community. I mean, I've done a lot of nonprofit work and didn't get paid for it because it's a part of my community give back. So you never know if a person's going to want to support your organization unless you ask. And the worst thing that they can say is no. And when folks say no, guess what? You're still alive. You still got it's no skin off your back, So that's what I would say, Ron.
Okay, then, thank you.
Um, so this is an example of a compliance matrix. So instead of section L here for grant, for the first column to the left, you would put the grant application, and then you put the whole sentence in there of what the requirement is so that people know exactly what they're writing to, right? And that's a check off. So that's just the example of, um, I wanted to do an example of a compliance matrix and stuff. And yours would, for a grant, would be more simplistic because 1, 2, and 3 columns would be together. 1, 2, 3, and 4 would be together. For RFP is a little bit more complex. And this is another example of a compliance matrix, real simplistic. I would recommend using this one where you have the application, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3. Here's what the requirement is. Did we respond to it? This would be a good sheet to give the reviewers that you have, and then they can tell you if you answered the mail or whatever. So you just put the application, most likely they're not numbered, so you put the paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, what the requirement was, and then they can see if you answered the mail. this is a really good review tool to use. This is what a proposal outline would look like. Each header is a requirement, and then you just put the information of that requirement inside of it in red. The reason why you do that is because a lot of times when people go to write, they're so busy doing other things that you want them to really know what they're supposed to write about. So everything that's in red is the requirements. So all they have to do is read the requirements for the application, and then start writing to that, so that they're not writing about 100 different things, but they're staying on point. And this is the planning spreadsheet that I was sharing with you guys about, and this is important too for a grant, because here's your proposal outline here. Here's the page number. So let's say if the grant application is like, it'll tell you what the page limitations is. So it's no more than 10 pages. So you can then say how many pages you'll put next to each one of these. Now, for a grant, you don't get what the evaluation points are, but you will have what the requirements are. But I would just do first column, number of pages you want them to write to, and then who's assigned. That's your planning sheet. Make it real simplistic. Anybody can take the ball and go with it if whoever you ask to lead it is now not able to lead something. So when we talk about proposal features, results, and benefits, so I'm going to do this as it relates to a grant, so you understand the same thing. When you write a project description, the question is, what are you featuring? What are you offering the grantor? What are you offering the community? Is it, state, I'm offering them the ability to blump, 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 or that's what I'm offering them. I'm offering them a, let's say, technology understanding of, from technology, they understand how to do social media. Who know, I'm throwing something out there, but that's the feature. Because you're offering this, what's the result of that offering? What will make the person who's coming to that class a different person academically or financially or whatever? What is the result of you offering that? If you don't know what the result is, then that means the offering is not there. And sometimes it takes a while to figure out, because the gap is in the application. They're giving you 3 areas to respond to. And so one of those gaps are the ones that you're responding to, which is the feature that you want to solve the problem with. And then the results of solving that problem is 20% of the people will walk out of this program understanding how to do, understanding the social media platform. Or 10 people will walk out of this class and they will then go to a community college and they've already signed up for it. That's the result. And then what is the benefit to the community? Increase in what? It lowers what? It provides what? So yeah. And the benefits, I tried to put some out there for you. It can be cost, it can be schedule, it can be quality, it can be risk, reducing risk in the community, safety, security. So instead of evaluation factor, here's the gap that the application talks about. It's 3 different areas that they want you to respond to. What are your features that you're going to give them within the area that you selected? And what are the benefits to the donor? Because now the donor can say, I supported a nonprofit that gave technical training to adults, and now some of those adults are at a community college learning ABC. Does that make sense? Okay. So acknowledging another discriminator is being able to acknowledge that there are some program risks in what you're doing, and that only needs to be a small paragraph, with no more than 3 or 4 lines, that says these are some of the program risks that we acknowledge, and this is how we're going to mitigate it. So some of the program risks could be that you may have 1% of the people drop out, and are you going to replace them with other people? And what's the timeline of replacing them? So if I have 10 students and 2 drop out the first week, then I have a backlog of people who want to get into the program that will then come on board prior to halfway through the class or something like that. So you want to acknowledge that everything is not going to be perfect, because no program is perfect, but you have proposed mitigations for that, and that you allowed it. And for the 2 that dropped out, it could be that those 2, the class was too advanced. So the mitigation is that you're going to create a class that is pre-blank, and so that they can understand what the program is all about. So does that make sense? Can you guys think of some program risk areas that you've dealt with in the past that you had to mitigate?
I don't know. Time commitment has been one. I mean, like you said earlier, skill level, or complexity of the class is another one.
Yeah,
Any
they're
any,
good.
fi- any financial barriers have been some things as
Yeah,
well.
and the big one is commitment for your staff, because just because you're 100% in doesn't mean that everybody that you're working with is 100% in. So if you have people that are only 50% in, then acknowledge it, and then schedule the program around the 50% that they're willing to support until they can get to 75 or to 100.
Hmm.
That's how you don't lose people. You lose people because you're like, well, you're not 100%, so find another nonprofit. How about recognizing that person's 25% committed to this organization? Let me see what I can get done to bring that percentage up to another 25%. What are they interested in? So really think at that level. Now, graphics, which is tables and figures, are sometimes difficult to do and create and let them and make them look professional. But it may be better to go to a graphic company and pay $25 for something, if that and it's a graphic that you can reuse over and over again, than to draw something and it looks unprofessional. So that's something that you have to think about too. Is you can also ask high school students and pay them to do graphics for you too. There's so many people in the graphic field now that it's not just a few. But I would seek out somebody like now, to do a couple different graphics for your company so that you can reuse those graphics, you know, and you actually want to make sure that you get the original graphic back that you can manipulate that might cost you a teeny bit more. Somebody had something in the comment section.
Yeah, I sent
Okay.
a chat. I sent a chat to you.
To me,
Hmm.
privately?
Yep.
It's a lot of chats in here.
there's a there's a lot of dialogue going on in the chat room. Believe me.
I don't see yours though, mine.
Well, mine was just a reminder that that we close out at 1 o'clock. That was just simply my reminder,
Oh, okay.
and that we were getting close to 1 o'clock.
Oh my gosh, I'm having such a good time, guys. Are you?
Well,
Okay. Well, I'm
well,
gonna.
well,
Huh?
like I told you last week, I nodded out, so I've been able to stay. I've been able to stay down here and stay awake this whole session. So wonderful, wonderful
Okay.
work.
Well, here's the thing, Ron. If you were gonna nod out this week, I was gonna ask Michelle just take you off the screen.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that would have been appropriate thing. That would have been appropriate thing to do.
Okay, so I'm gonna skip all this because I want to get into um, you guys are going to have this slide anyway. I wanted to.
Well, the other question with Maxine, if they have any other questions after this session, are you open to them contacting by email or such?
Sure. This link right here, and I did for 3Ds, I did hunting. This might be the same link that you have on that you do more of this than I do. But under the Foundation Center organization, it has a lot of different foundations that provide uh, um, funding for organizations. So I just wanted to make sure you guys had this link. And oh, that's it. So anyway, that covers a whole multitude of sins. The reason why this link is important because the funding organization, it tells you how much money they actually gave out in a particular year, and it also talked about what their requirements are and who their trustees and officers are, and this is doing stuff. Um, let's say re-engineering it because you guys are used to going to the funder site and filling out the application. Now I'm telling you to go to the third level of business development. Let's find out what they gave the IRS in terms of how much they funded different organizations, who did they fund, and then that gives you an idea of the type of um, funding that you'll get from them. So this is reverse engineering and stuff when you go to this site. So this is their 990 forms that you can get and to find out about the foundation that you want to get funding from and stuff. So try to let you guys get in all levels. But it's 102. I hope you guys got something out of this. Again, if you need any information or if you want me to, uh, talk to you one on one, about things that you're thinking about doing, just give me a call or send me an email, and I'll be willing to do it. I'll turn it back over to Michelle.
Oh, wow.
Thank you so much for your presentation. That was great.
Okay, thanks.
Oh. Well, Maxine, thank you. Just invaluable information coming from you, and certainly sharing all your experiences across the landscape. And so, this is one of the, this has been the testimony of this academy this spring, in terms of not just you, but all the presenters who shared their knowledge with us along this journey to help folks actually actualize on their missions and their dreams about building sustainable cooperative businesses along this journey. So